red jackets, you know. And I didn't really help them. But I was told I had to come back to the UK to apply, and then I applied and they turned me down, which is sort of just as well. And I was working, I had to have a job, you know, feed myself. So I was back at my folks' place out in Camberley, working in a Johnson's wax factory. And there was a young guy, who was maybe 2 years or so younger than me. But we had a lot in common and we were hanging out. And he came in one day and said, you know, did you see the Sex Pistols on the Grundy show last night? And I said, no, you know. Because I'd heard of them, you know, I was an avid NME reader and all that kind of stuff. He said, oh, it was fucking brilliant, you know, it was just, wow. So, and I kind of heard bits and pieces, but it wasn't like, you know, in the burbs, there wasn't like a record shop you were going to go to find it. It was kept off the telly, was kept off the radio, you know, it's this underground thing. And then I had got another job, I was working as I wanted to go into advertising, and I got turned down because I was too late for the graduate cut. And so I got a, you know, it was one of those things in life where they go, well, if you did that, you could move into this and all that kind of rubbish. Believe you me, whatever you want to do in life, just do what you want to do. Don't accept the fact that they're going to move you sideways into something else. So I was working as a sales rep for like a long hot summer, and it wasn't such a bad gig because the sun was shining, I could drive around, I just had to go and visit these warehouses and get them to stock up, and I could drive around and get stoned, I had an expense account, I'd stay in a hotel at night, and you know, I'd got tips from the older reps about how to lose the cost of a bottle of wine in the food, and so I was actually, for like sort of 8-10 weeks, I was living the life of Riley, and I was in Brighton, a hotel called Clarges, not Clarges, but Clarges, and I got a bit stoned, mashed over dinner, and I'd luckily got into the TV room before all these other twats, and I was watching the whistle test, and Whispering Bob goes out now, Stranglers live from the Hoop and Anchor, and they didn't hardly have anyone in the audience for it, and it was like, that was my Damascene moment. It was like an epiphany. It was like everything, you know. They were playing Hanging Around, which to this day is still one of my favourite tracks, you know. I don't know if you know Hanging Around. Now, I know there's some debate as to whether the Stranglers were really punk and not really punk, and I don't really subscribe to that kind of Pol Pot view of punk history, you know. I mean, there's Patrick Fitzgerald was punk, but he played an acoustic guitar, you know. I mean, by some of the later standards, they wouldn't have deemed him punk, but he was. And this was just awesome. It was, yeah. And then the next day, I handed my notice in and decided I had to, you know, whatever I was going to do, I had to form a band.
They were quite atmospheric, weren't they, with the old keyboard players?
Yeah, well, there was that kind of element, I guess, you know, because I've been a big Doors fan and all that. So they were kind of, I guess, for many people, they were the bridge between, you know, that kind of edgier music that you might still like from the 60s, early 70s. But then, you know, I was a huge Bowie fan and big Velvet Underground fan. I mean, I remember as a kid being, one of my mates dragging me in, you know, and they used to have the listening booths in the records, dragging, you got to hear this, and he puts Heroin on by the Velvet Underground, and we're like, oh my God, you know, it's okay, noise. And Bowie, for different reasons. I mean, Ziggy Stardust, I guess, was a breakthrough, but, you know, I love Hunky Dory, Ziggy Stardust, those albums are kind of golden records. He made a lot of golden records, but there's another element to him that a lot of friends of mine who were gay felt kind of empowered to come out. And I look on that as a brilliant thing, because it was suddenly the world started getting a bit of colour. You know, suddenly you kind of had social groups where, you know, guys could be outrageously camp, and it just made everything funnier and brighter and more alive, you know. And I think, you know, Bowie should be given credit. People might argue in retrospect, oh, he wasn't really gay or he wasn't this. It doesn't matter.
Did his missus give him a makeover as well? Angie, wasn't it?
I didn't really, I didn't really know him that well enough. But I mean, she probably tried to take credit for a lot of it. But I mean, I think he was there. You know, the guy was.
I remember going to Paris.
He was hungry for success, wasn't he?
Yeah. In London, it was like this. But I remember going to Paris in the 70s, the Pigalle, and transvestites and everyone.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's always been a very healthy transvestite prostitute scene in Paris. You know, always has been. It's kind of where the English aristocracy used to go. It's probably why it grew so much. But no, it wasn't so much that aspect. It was the fact that in everyday life, people were able to start opening up and being truthful about who they were.